The wrong door shattered at the wrong second. Splinters of wood burst across my polished floor as 3 uniformed men stormed my house at 2 in the morning. Their flashlights carved through the dark like blades, beams slicing the dust in the air. The lead man's boot crushed the doorframe underfoot, his partner's hand hovering over his sidearm, their captain scanning the wreckage with a cold, deliberate stare. Before we move forward, comment down from where you're watching right now. I want to see how far this story travels. Because what you're about to hear isn't some urban myth. It's what happens when a corrupt clique mistakes discipline for weakness. I bolted upright in bed, sheets twisting around my legs. The beams hit my face, harsh and blinding. Tank top and shorts my only armor, I was dragged into exposure in the most violent way possible. "Hands where we can see them!" the lead barked. Slowly, deliberately, I raised them. Around me, drawers yanked open, furniture overturned, papers strewn like leaves in a storm. But my eyes adjusted with purpose. I wasn't staring at the mess. I was cataloging faces, memorizing badge numbers, noting every move. That's when the lead's flashlight beam froze. On my wall hung a navy windbreaker. Across the back, in bold gold letters, Federal Agent. He held the beam there for 3 long seconds. None of them spoke. Their radios crackled. The energy in the room shifted, but they pressed on. He moved to my nightstand, rifling through my bag with practiced ease. Too practiced. I watched him slip a small plastic bag into a side pocket, then draw it back out with a smirk. The powder inside gleamed like bait. My lips curved into the faintest smile. On the dresser, plain as daylight, sat my federal credentials. They'd walked right past it. Another man rummaged through my closet, his hand starting to tremble. Good. He should be nervous. I sat straighter in bed, voice clear. "I need to see your warrant." The detective's head snapped toward me. "We don't need a warrant for a noise complaint, sweetheart." My tone didn't falter. "You search for a search this invasive. You've gone well past the scope of any noise complaint." The second man froze mid-search. My authority cracked through their tension. The detective's jaw tightened. "What are you, some kind of lawyer?" "I know my rights under the 4th Amendment," I replied evenly, "and this is an illegal search." From the doorway, the captain finally stepped forward. "Ma'am, we received reports of hazardous materials at this address." I locked eyes with him. "From whom? And what specific probable cause justified breaking down my door?" They exchanged nervous glances. Silence hung heavy. It was the sergeant who finally spoke. "Anonymous tip said you were stockpiling." "Anonymous tips don't justify warrantless searches of private residences," I answered. The detective's face darkened. "You think you're smart?" "I think you're violating federal law." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Listen, lady, we found contraband in your place. You can cooperate or we can make this very hard." "What would you do if a squad stormed your home in the middle of the night, planted evidence, and dared you to stay silent?" My expression stayed cool. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm giving you options." "Option 1, you want me to confess to crimes I didn't commit?" "Option 2, you manufacture new charges." The room went still. Only the faint hiss of their radios broke the silence. "You've got a smart mouth," the sergeant snapped. "I have constitutional rights," I replied. The detective yanked out handcuffs, metal clinking sharp. "You're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance." As the cuffs bit into my wrists, I angled my body toward their glowing chest cams. My voice rang out, clear and deliberate. "I'm being arrested on planted evidence. These officers entered without a warrant or probable cause. I never consented to this search." I didn't come to this neighborhood as a naive civilian. My name is Savannah Steele. My record reads like a field manual, multiple deployments embedded with federal strike teams, 15 years in the Bureau tracking corruption rings, clearances most people never hear about. Paperwork is my native language. Evidence is my oxygen. When I signed the deed to this property, I walked the perimeter with a practiced eye, mapped ingress and egress points, and set up cameras before the first box was unpacked. That wasn't paranoia. That was preparation. That preparation is why I'm still standing to tell this story. Before these men came crashing into my home, I'd already been building a case. They thought they were raiding a victim. They were stepping into an investigation. For 18 months, I'd been buried deep inside a clique of officers who operated like an HOA turned cartel. Shakedowns, planted evidence, asset seizures. I documented every move. Times, dates, badge numbers, body cam gaps, sealed warrants sitting unsigned in a file drawer. Every piece stacked like ordnance waiting to go off. What they didn't know was that every time they abused someone, they handed me another nail for their own coffin. Neighbors saw me as the quiet one who paid on time, kept my yard immaculate, and waved at kids riding bikes. Veterans don't need parades. We need order. For a while, I had it. Then the anonymous tips started. The so-called noise complaints, hazardous materials, unapproved items. The same officers showing up on the same calls. They didn't realize I was logging their patterns, cross-referencing dispatch logs with patrol assignments, and feeding everything into a secure bureau server. While they were writing me up, I was writing their indictment. I knew their tactics. Anonymous tips to justify a knock and talk. A little intimidation to get consent to search. If that failed, slip in evidence and discover it. I'd seen it ruin lives. In Rivergate alone, dozens of families had been hit. Fines, raids, forfeitures. They chose me because they thought a black woman living alone at the edge of town would fold. They didn't check the name on the mailbox. They didn't know Savannah Steele had been tracking corruption since before they pinned on their badges. I built layers of defense the way I'd built them overseas. Redundant motion lights tied to a UPS battery, cloud-based surveillance with dual backups, a panic beacon embedded in my phone that linked straight to the Bureau emergency response, and a hidden camera of my own, pointed at the very spot where their hands would go rifling through my purse. They thought they controlled the narrative. I controlled the evidence. But I wasn't just fortifying. I was baiting. Each time they pushed further, fines, threats, late-night compliance checks, I made sure my house looked like an easy target. No sign of weapons, no visible badge, just enough to tempt them into a full breach. Because once they crossed that threshold without a warrant, the entire case would lock. In my world, you don't spring the trap until you're sure it's set. That night at 2 a.m., they set it for me. What kept me steady as their flashlights slashed through my home wasn't courage, it was protocol. Years of running covert operations had trained me to speak slowly, document everything, never let rage show on my face. Even cuffed, I was taking mental snapshots, the angle of a crowbar, the tremor in a sergeant's hands, the name tag half hidden under a jacket. Those details build a case the way small rivets hold an aircraft together. Miss one, and the whole thing falls apart. Catch them all, and the structure is indestructible. And while they thought they were dragging me through booking, my systems were already in motion. Officer Monroe, sitting in the equipment room across town, scrolling through live feeds she wasn't supposed to watch. Marcus Hale jolted awake when my beacon triggered on his secure phone. Federal tactical teams pulling sealed warrants from drawers where they'd been waiting for a green light. They didn't know that by breaking into my home, they'd just authorized their own takedown. These men weren't lone wolves making bad calls. They were a network, a clique inside Rivergate Police functioning like a private HOA cartel, shakedowns disguised as community safety, fines and raids orchestrated by the same hands, property seized under cover of hazardous materials. Their captain, a man named Holt, presided over it like a board president, pretending the rules made it legitimate. They used anonymous tips as pretext, planted contraband to justify arrests, then leveraged the charges into forfeitures. I'd mapped every incident for 18 months. Tonight they thought they were staging another routine scare. They didn't know they'd just walked into the case I built against them. Even in handcuffs I could feel the shift. Their bravado thinning as they realized the windbreaker on my wall wasn't a prop. The sergeant's hands trembled in my closet. The detective's jaw clenched too tight. They were sensing, not yet understanding, that they had crossed the wrong threshold. "Listen, lady," the lead hissed in the squad car. "You're in deep." I just stared at the dash cam light blinking red. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. Inside the booking area, I spoke calmly, each word a nail in their coffin. "I am requesting legal counsel. I am requesting a supervisor. I am requesting a review of your body camera footage." My voice didn't waver. My tone was the procedure itself. Every time they shoved, every protocol they skipped, I recorded in my head like a stenographer. They had no idea that Officer Monroe, one of their own, was sitting in the equipment room watching their body cam feeds in real time. She saw the hand slip the baggie into my purse. She saw the smirk when it came back out. She saw the setup. And at that moment she faced her own line in the sand. Her phone buzzed with a text from the detective. "Delete the body cam footage. Equipment malfunction." She stared at it, pulse pounding. Delete. And she was complicit. Save and she betrayed men she'd trained with. Men who called themselves her brothers in blue. She typed back, "Copy that." But her fingers moved differently, uploading the footage to a secure federal server, the same system I'd been feeding for months. When the upload finished, she closed her eyes and dialed a number she'd memorized in training. The Bureau tip line. "This is Officer Monroe. We've taken a federal agent into custody." On the other end, silence, then a sharper voice. "Repeat that." "Savannah Steele, HOA Corruption Unit. They planted evidence. Do not let that footage disappear. We're sending a team. Keep her safe." At that same moment, Assistant Director Marcus Hale jolted awake when his secure phone buzzed on the nightstand. "Federal Emergency Protocol," he answered on the first ring. "She's been arrested," my handler's voice said. "They planted evidence. Body camera confirmation." Before Hale could respond, another alert flashed across his secure tablet. My emergency beacon had just activated. That signal was reserved for one scenario only: life-threatening danger. "Full response now," Hale ordered. Within minutes, federal tactical teams mobilized, legal teams prepped sealed warrants, surveillance vans locked onto Rivergate police communications. While they still thought they were holding me quietly, black SUVs were already rolling. Back in the interrogation room, the detective spread a thick folder in front of me. "Let's talk about your contraband business," he said with false confidence. "I don't use or distribute anything," I replied evenly. "The evidence says differently." "The planted evidence," I corrected. He slammed a fist against the table. "Stop saying that." I leaned forward, voice low, deliberate. "Then stop planting evidence." The words unsettled him. He pressed closer, trying to intimidate me, but my next sentence made his face drain of color. "I think you've been under federal investigation for 2 years. Operation Iron Gavel. Ring any bells?" The name was classified. Only federal investigators and high-level corruption targets knew it existed. Through thin walls, I heard urgent whispers, frantic phone calls, the scrambling of men who realized they had just arrested the very woman investigating them. Meanwhile, Hale's teams closed in. Surveillance vans intercepted radio chatter. Destruction orders, cover-up instructions, officers telling each other to wipe the cams. "Too late for that," Hale muttered, as his analysts uploaded every intercepted file straight to bureau servers. At 3:00 a.m., black SUVs ringed the station. Tactical agents locked into position. Hale's voice came through steady as iron. "All units, federal authority is now in effect." Chaos erupted inside Rivergate Police Station as the sound of heavy boots approached. Some officers froze with their hands raised. Others scrambled to cover files. But resistance was useless. Federal agents poured through every entrance, weapons holstered but authority radiating from their vests. Evidence rooms were secured, computers seized, bodycam archives downloaded straight to bureau servers. Every secret this department had tried to bury was already in federal hands. Captain Holt emerged pale and cornered. Marcus Hale met him with no hesitation. "Captain Holt, you're under arrest for conspiracy to violate civil rights." The words landed like a verdict. The detective and sergeant weren't spared either. Both were pinned to the wall, cuffed, and read charges of evidence tampering, false imprisonment, and deprivation of rights under color of law. Their badges meant nothing now. Then came the silence that broke them completely. I entered, no longer in handcuffs. I wore my federal windbreaker badge displayed like a shield. Hale held it high for the entire station to see. "Special Agent Savannah Steele, lead investigator, Operation Iron Gavel." Shock rippled through the room. For 15 years I had tracked corruption, documented illegal searches, and recorded planted evidence. Now I revealed the scope. Dozens of officers indicted, half the department implicated. The detective buckled when I read his record aloud. Unlawful searches, civil rights violations, evidence planting. The sergeant slumped as his own file was exposed. Even Holt, once untouchable, closed his eyes as charges of running a criminal enterprise under color of law sealed his fate. Months later, the trial gripped the nation. Boxes of evidence towered in federal court. Bodycam footage, transcripts, hidden recordings, every violation cataloged. Guilty verdicts rained down. Sentences measured in decades. Reporters swarmed me outside the courthouse. What message does this send? My answer was steady. Justice requires patience, courage, and persistence. Truth doesn't vanish. It waits to surface. Officer Monroe, now a federal task force witness, stood beside me. She had chosen conscience over corruption, and her testimony had been pivotal. I looked back at the courthouse, then forward toward my next assignment. The work never ends, but for this community, justice had finally arrived. If you believe no one is above the law, not even those who wear the badge, smash that like button and subscribe to Hoastories Global, because real justice only begins when the truth is exposed.